Lucky you.
36 best holes in
Into
golf.
Alternate Shots podcast,
Barney's Army.
where we talk about
Sandy.
golf, poker,
James Bond.
horse racing,
Double.
classic movies.
Zenyatta.
We have no script.
Down the stretch they come.
We are glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Talking about how he had a terrible stuttering problem growing up. He really couldn't speak. Used to come home after being in fist fights. Kids would beat him up and he'd hold his own, but he became a loner. And so he started playing golf because it was the way he thought he could teach himself how to speak, as if he had a gallery that he would speak to. And that's how, and he said he picked a lonely game that he knew, and he started playing golf. My grandfather was doing some, he was working down in, on the docks, but spent time at Harding Park, and that's how my dad was able to get out at Harding Park and start playing. So he started with that and taught himself how to speak. And he was a man of few words over the years as a younger man. There were times like at the Masters when I think Cliff Roberts was upset because he didn't have a lot to say after you were talking about earlier. He led as an amateur for all three days in the 56 Masters, and then shot 80 the last day and lost by a stroke. And he kind of got out of there without saying much. And Cliff Roberts, I think, was somewhat insulted by him not spending more time in front of the press. And they played the Bing Crosby Pro-Am that year, the next month, and that's when the match was set up. And then it was after that next month in April when he played in the 56 Masters. He actually played in the 54 Masters. He was stationed out at Fort Ord in Monterey, California. And the last couple of weeks, he was in boot camp. And Bobby Jones wrote a letter to the U.S. Army general asking for permission for him to leave, which they gave him. And so he played in the 54 Masters. That was the first time he ever played. And then he came back to the boot camp, and the staff sergeant said, "You think you're a tough guy?" He put him through boot camp again. After the 56 Masters, that was a turning point, and he felt that that really made him want to go out and compete as a professional. So it was after that he ended up becoming a professional. But that was the turning point.
And was that about the time when it was becoming more lucrative to be a professional golfer? Because I know earlier than that, there was no money in it.
Yeah, not much. I tell you, he in 1958, I think he was the number 2 money winner, and he won $6,500 the whole year. So there wasn't much in it.
But he made that transition from amateur to pro, and certainly made it look more attractive, I would guess, to people younger than him.
Yeah, I think the athletes in those days, they tend to hang together and party together and play together. And I didn't see much of them growing up. I mean, I travel a little bit on tour and come out and stay out here with the Santangelos and the Dratties on occasion. But he wasn't home much, and so that was his life. And I think practicing and living it day in and day out. That's the way these athletes were. I mean, his pinnacle was the 64 U.S. Open when he won that at Congressional, and then got Sportsman of the Year that year too, which was great, for him. But it was downhill after that because that's when his hands went bad. But the life of a pro was a hard life. They really didn't know what it was then, Bob. It was he went to Mayo Clinic, and he always told the story about how his father, my grandfather Fred, who worked at Harding Park and was kind of his guide over the years, and he never really said anything. My dad, complimenting him or just was always pretty tough on him. But he was driving him to the airport that day to take him to Mayo Clinic for his operation, and my dad said to my grandfather, he goes, Dad, he goes, I don't know if I may never play again. They're gonna cut me open. I don't know, I may never play. And my grandfather said, "It doesn't matter, son." And he said, "Well, what do you mean it doesn't matter?" He says, "You were the best I ever saw." And that was my dad's kind of vote of confidence.
And I'll share an interesting story for the people that love the game. So Jay made the cut, and he got paired with Johnny Miller the next day, who was a defending champ. I think he said he shot 78, which he said, by the way, wasn't that bad on that course, as you know, the Massacre at Wingfoot. But I didn't play well. And he said, going back to my hotel, I realized that I learned 2 important things. First thing was that Johnny Miller didn't care about me. I cared about impressing Johnny Miller. He was a defending champ and all that stuff. And the second thing was more important, is that he wasn't supposed to care about me. I need to care about me. So we'll fast forward to the next year at Medina in 75. Jay's playing very good. I think he's within the top 15 going to the third round. And he gets paired with Nicklaus. So 1 year later, he gets to, and Jack shot 75 and Jay shot 72. And so very interesting how some people get it, whatever it is. But this kid at 19 years old figured this out. And 1 year later, beat Jack Nicklaus in the round that he played with him. And I think that's the interesting thing about good players is with all this information and TrackMan and forces and ground forces and obliques and, engaging the glutes and stuff. And we can measure all this stuff, but we couldn't measure how that kid figured out going down the Hutchison Parkway what he did wrong that day, right?
No.
So how did
But they say you can explain it to them, but you can't comprehend it for them.
Yeah, you can't really share experiences. And so I'm swing theoried out personally, but I'm so interested in the people that play and why they're good, because if the three of us 5 or 6 years ago went to Augusta and we sat in the bleachers on the range, we didn't know who anybody was. Okay. Now we've all been around golf our whole lives. We've seen it. And we had to figure out who the number one player in the world was. Not one of us would have said Jordan Spieth.
Right.
Not even close. In fact, he might not have been in the top 50, just watching his swing and everything. So, and as you alluded to, Scotty Scheffler. And so the kind of goes back to what Craig said about Dad. He thought he was one of them,
But do you think Craig Wood made an impression on him?
Oh yeah, no, he always told us that Craig taught him how to swing, and he changed his swing, and Hogan taught him how to play. Because when they played at Seminole back in the 40s, when Hogan would go down there for the month before the Masters, they played a game where you threw $10 in the hat if you missed a fairway or missed a green. So when you play that game with Ben Hogan, you better be pretty good.
Wow.
And $10 is a lot of money back in the 40s. And so the year that Dad won the Masters, he said he actually beat Hogan more than Hogan beat him in that stretch. So when he got to Augusta, he had a certain sense of confidence that he always said Hogan made him feel like an amateur, not personally, just, how good he was. But he said that month before Augusta, he felt like he was pretty good. But, Dad had already got to the semifinals of the PGA in 45.
Yep.
And he got beat by Nelson in the middle of Nelson's 11 in a row. And so that seemed to be something that kind of just stuck with him, that I must be a reasonable player if I'm going toe-to-toe with Ben Hogan and occasionally beating him, Dad beat Snead in 42 holes. And that story is interesting because in the morning, Dad shot 64 and was 6 up. Back to, can you imagine a club pro playing Tiger in the World Match Play and having him 6 down after, it's not going to happen. Yeah. And then Dad birdied the 19th hole in the afternoon to go 7 up. And then Snead played the next 17 holes in 8 under. I think that year he beat 3 major champions to get to Snead. I made it this far with the great Sam Snead. I'm going to stick to my game plan. So he went back and put the driver back, got the 1 iron, 9 iron, 20 feet. And he said, Sam played the most beautiful pitch shot you ever saw, about 3 feet from the hole. And back then they played stymies. And by sheer luck, my dad missed his putt and it left Snead a stymie. He couldn't putt at the hole. So I said, what would you do in that instance? Just concede a half. He says, no, you got to make the great Sam Snead putt it out sideways and then give it to him. Just you got to embarrass him a little bit. So they got to the 42nd hole. This is another, he must have felt like he was one of them stories. So they both had about 25 footers. Snead was getting ready to putt, and my dad says, I don't think you're away. Now, how many guys would do that? Club pros, And Snead says, well, why do I have to believe you? And he said, well, you don't. Let's get a referee. So a referee came out and got a rope and measured it. And Dad was away by 6 inches. And Dad made it, and Snead missed. And when he congratulated my dad, excuse my language, but he said, you hung my ass with that rope. Just when you think about it, what an odd couple. You know, Dad, 6 kids, pretty gregarious, club pro, you know. I think my dad revered Hogan, but I think his quirks made my dad laugh, where they might have intimidated other people. Dad actually thought a lot of the stuff that Hogan did was so quirky, was just kind of humorous, you know. And you probably have heard this story about the dinner the week of the Open in '59. I think Dad's sports psychologist was Johnny Dewars, and maybe Hogan's was Jack Daniels. And I was 8. You know, we were all there. The boys were there and having dinner. And Hogan said to Dad, he said, you could play well this week, but you won't. And he said, how come? He said, well, you're a jolly golfer. And my dad said, what the hell's a jolly golfer? He said, well, you're going to get out of the car and you're going to see Mr. Williams there. When you get out, you're going to ask how his daughter's doing at Princeton and how his son's doing at wherever he's going to school. And Dad said, well, you're right. I had those people in my junior clinic. They're part of the fabric of the club and part of the fabric of my life. That's exactly what I'm going to do. He says, well, if they're your friends, they'll leave you alone. My dad said, well, he didn't really, you know, what's he supposed to do? So he said to Hogan, what am I supposed to do? You know, kind of jokingly. He says, keep your eyes on the ground. Because if you don't make eye contact with someone in a big crowd, they don't feel bad that you didn't say hi to them because they could see you didn't see him, you see. So Dad decided to do that during the rounds. He didn't do it when he got out of the car and he was going to the range, but he thought, you know, that might be a good thing to do when the tournament starts. So he could have seen some people. So he did do that. And as luck would have it, and life would have it, he got paired with Hogan the last round and he beat Hogan by 6. So I said to Dad one time, I said, you ever needle Mr. Hogan about that jolly golfer BS? He said, you know, Bill, if you're a golf pro, it would behoove you not to needle Ben Hogan about golf. I said, no, I did not needle him about it.
Keep looking
I
at the
was just
ground.
very happy to beat him. Never saw him get mad on a golf course. Never in my life did I see my father show any anger on a golf course.
The one hole I really remember, isn't 16 a par 5?
Yes.
Okay, so I am really contending, and I've hit 2 good shots at 16. I have a long pitch to the green, and I am thinking I need to make 4 here, and I might get there. And I don't remember hitting a great shot, but I hit a reasonably good shot, and I didn't make the putt. And I think not making 4 there cost me as much as anything. So
Well,
that. But that's the hole I really remember. And I also remember having one of the best ball striking weeks ever. And I just did not make putts. I don't think I putted. I didn't make them.
Neil Christie, who caddied for you, said the same thing. That you were hitting it square all day and just not getting the putts in the hole sometimes.
He was a great caddy. He was. And I don't know that I've ever crossed paths with him since, but I still remember his name. And I remember what a almost great week we had.
Well, you can say hello to him because he'll be listening to this next week.
Oh, good. In the days that I remember the U.S. Open was before the U.S. Open was a little more reasonable for women. And the U.S. Open took a turn to be much more reasonable for women when Judy Bell was the president of the USGA. But prior to that, it was, and I think a lot of people would say this, it was a test that also had an element of luck. Because if you can go way back and think about men or women's US Opens now, but if you go way back, there was the green, there was a little bit of fringe, and then the rough started being that high. every, I know this now that I'm older and wiser and don't play well. But at the US Open, in all the years that I played, the way to miss the ball was short. Because if you miss the ball long or right or left, maybe it's because of skill, maybe it's because of golf clubs, but nobody was superior at playing these short shots from this deep stuff as many are superior now. So clubs and skill have changed at this point. But when I look back, I think, and very often you were hitting a 3-wood at a green and you hit it pin high but missed the green, that was not good. In fact, you would really hope for a bunker.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of a player a long time ago that was great out of that really long rough. And if there were one, I might tag Joanne Carner, because she had a little more nerve to lay the blade open and, whatever. But basically, you really hope the ball would go in a bunker.
Yeah.
So it's a different game today. It's a different game today, and they really do more invite you to get the ball to hole high and to take the chance of going over the green and so on. And I think that has made that's made golfers so much better than all those years ago. And I'm pretty sure of that, because I started playing in USGA tournaments when I was, I don't know, a young teenager. Actually before then, because I was 11 years old and played in the National Junior Girls when Joanne Carner won. She beat Clifford Ann Creed in a playoff. And I would tell you how good Joanne Carner was. My dad and I had stayed and watched that last match. Obviously, I was out early. Clifford Ann Creed never made a bogey and lost 5-4.
Wow.
So, and I saw that.
Well, you were 14 when you won the Missouri Amateur, I think. Were you 14
Yes.
years old?
Yes.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was to most of us too. Yeah, my dad sent me and I stayed with a family, and nobody dreamed I would do that well, but there you go.
Did you dream it? Or did you have fear or anxiety about it? Or did you just go out there and play golf?
I really don't know. I always played golf kind of serious. That came from my father. My maiden name is Torlumpke. So I'm a little bit German, and my father was really a little bit German. So everything was, well, and my life was more serious because my mother was in the throes of not living. My mother was dying. She finally passed away when I was 11, but she spent the last 4 years of her life paralyzed down the left side of her body. She had a malignant brain tumor. So those kinds of things make your life more serious. And I think people can understand that. So I was their only child. And so I just remember being serious and kind of going about my business. And I don't know, somehow that happened. And I was becoming good and better. I did not win the Missouri Am the next year, but I do remember being the low qualifier when I was 15. And I shot 69, which was an accomplishment in its own right. So,
so you grew up playing golf serious, and the other day, maybe it was last week, somebody said, forget who it was, golf is an easy game until you care.
Yeah, I say that all the time.
Well,
you can't be good at golf unless you don't care, and then you get good, but you don't care.
If you don't have moments where you hate it, you can never really love it. I think. I don't know. It's one of the great. I have a quote somewhere. Here was Louise Suggs' quote about golf. Golf is like a love affair. If you don't take it seriously, it's no fun. if you do take it seriously, it breaks your heart. So I think that's
Spot on.
Who do we have today, Billy?
We have Eric Cole, and I'm up at my home away from home in Connecticut at the Mohegan Sun, and I'm taking a break from, taking everybody's money so I could just meet this fellow and hear some of his stories. I've been very impressed by the way he played all year, and thank you for joining us, Eric.
Looking forward to getting into it.
Well, there's two things we're not going to record so that those 64,000 IRS agents don't come after you and Eric. Is what you won yesterday, but what he's done this year is exponentially bigger. So
Yeah, would you like to play a couple of hands later, Eric?
From what I hear, I think I might be outclassed there, so I might just stick to the talking about golf.
what a year, but talk about the big P word, persistence.
Yeah, no, it's been a long road to get here, and I'm obviously very happy with the way the years went so far. We still got the fall to play, but I played a lot of mini tour golf all over the place, all over the country. And, for whatever reason, it took me a lot longer to get to the PGA Tour than I would have liked. If I was writing a script for myself, I definitely wouldn't have written it this way, but it's kind of makes it a little sweeter, knowing how much work I put into it to get here. So I'm very happy with how the year's gone, and hopefully we'll finish it off well in the fall.
You never know with scripts too. Might not be as good an author as the author that has fate in store for you. So
Yeah,
you're here, you're here and now.
Yeah, I hope you're right on that one. I don't know. I think as you play better, there's stuff that comes with it. Some more articles are written about you. There's some TV around you and stuff. But most of my pressure kind of comes from me personally. I'm just out there trying to hold myself to like a really high standard that I think I could achieve. So, I try not to let the other stuff bother me or affect me too much. But as you play better, that's stuff that comes with good golf, and I'm certainly trying to play as good as I can. So I'm all for the extra attention and stuff that comes with it. Yeah, no, it's just it's something that comes with playing well. So if you're not, you work so hard to try and be ready and try and play well. If you're not, if you don't have a positive opinion about the stuff that comes with it, then it's kind of like, what did you work so hard for? So that's kind of the way I try and think about it.
My hat's off to you for your persistence.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, it's I hope that that's something people would say about me, is that I'm persistent, and I didn't really give up much, and I tried as hard as I could. So those are all good things to hear about yourself, and I definitely feel that way. Like I like I said, I thought I would be out there sooner, and I saw a bunch of friends of mine play well and have success out there. And it's definitely hard to stay positive and stuff, but with the right people around you, it makes it a little bit easier.
But you have interesting people around you. You used to caddy for Arnold Palmer's grandson, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And then you show up there in the earlier this year. It's a great storyline.
I mean, that's just two good people to have around you to help you with your swing and learn how to play golf when I was younger and bounce ideas off now. So I was always around golf when I was young, and I was very lucky to have both of them playing in professional tournaments, and kind of saw how cool that was and what a life they were living inside the ropes. And I kind of made my mind up pretty young that I think I want to try and do that. And it's been great to have them supporting me this whole time in this long journey to get to where I am now. I think it's just my frame. I'm smaller and I have long arms, so I kind of swing the club around me a little more. I would like to be a big, high, fading, natural ball flight, but again, that's not really my thing. And I think it's important not to get too far away from what the skills you have and the way you swing it, because it's easy to see those great players on tour that are capable of these unbelievable things and hitting shots that look a little unfamiliar to me. It's easy to want to try and do that, but I think that's one good thing about me taking the longer road to the PGA Tour is once I got there, I didn't try and change too much like you see with some younger rookies.
Yeah. Get on the PGA Tour and let's change it up.
Yeah, it happens.
So 3 quick questions. There's some debate. Is it 54 wins? Is it 90 wins? I don't know, and I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, I don't know what the actual
It's a lot,
number is.
though.
Yeah, so there's a tour that runs down here called the Minor League Golf Tour. It's actually had a lot of great players play on it. But on that tour, I think it's like, yeah, middle 50s. But I've played a lot of mini tours all over the country and in Florida. So I definitely have more than that, but I'm not sure exactly what the total number.
But you mentioned your caddy. Tell us about your caddy.
His dad is Russ Cochran, lefty, played the PGA Tour for a long time, plays the Champions Tour still a little bit. His son Reed caddies for me, so we met up and kind of linked up on the Corn Ferry Tour in 2022, I guess. At the beginning
So you
of
didn't
last
know
year.
him from your ins and outs here?
Not real. Well, I mean, I knew him because he caddied out there, and I was, friendly with him, but I didn't have a close relationship with him. But I play a ton of golf with his dad, and like we kind of just knew each other through that, and then finally kind of paired up together. And I think it's been a good run so far for both of us.
That's the other thing we see. Two things with Billy and I. We don't know anything like you do. Stop changing putters.
Yeah.
Stop changing caddies.
Yeah.
You got enough to worry about.
Stop changing Orlamars.
Yeah. No, the most of the time, the golf it takes you to get to in my opinion, the golf it takes you to get to the PGA Tour, if you don't let the stage and the environment mess you up too much, is normally plenty good to have some success out there. And, I think it's a common thing you see is younger guys that don't necessarily know that will come out and probably change a little bit too much.
Well, your Florida swing was really good. You went to the Players. I mean, tied for 27th with Danny Willett, Ryan Fox, Wyndham Clark, Brendan Todd. I mean, a couple of those guys, major winners. Wyndham Clark is a major winner and a Ryder Cupper. So what does that do for your memory book?
Yeah, those players specifically.
And how you played so well there. That was the first time you played in the
tournament. That was
there?
the first time there. I'd caddied there for Sam Saunders before, but I had never played it. And I actually I made eagle on 16 on Friday to make the cut on the number. So I was, I didn't really play all that well the first 2 days and had a decent finish there. And then I did play much better Saturday and Sunday, and I'm not sure what I shot, but it was kind of nice to move up the leaderboard and, in a big field like that, hit some really good shots with, a lot of people watching there on 17.
But when you first show up on the PGA Tour as a rookie, how do people? I assume everybody treats you differently, but is it a welcoming experience, or everybody's in their own head and they don't care if you're there or not? How does that feel?
I think it's a mix. I mean, I know some of those guys just from years of golfing, or some of them have just been around me and down here in South Florida and stuff. So, I definitely have a few friends that were out there, and then, a lot of guys are just focused on their own stuff. It's probably not, the same PGA Tour that my dad came out on and played, in the 60s and 70s. They were a little more buddy. They were playing for less
fraternity.
Yeah, they were playing for less money. It probably more mirrors mini tour golf now, where guys are traveling together more often. They would have on the PGA Tour back then. But now, a lot of guys have a team around them, and, it's big business out there. So they're focused and trying to play the best they can. And, so it's a mix. There's a few guys that I know, and there's, a lot of guys that are, doing their own thing. For the most part, everyone's really nice and put their best foot forward and play as well as they can. And I think that creates the best environment for fans to watch, and for it to be on display. That's exactly what you want.
Not a lot of Noonans. Noonan. We just did an episode with
it's broken, I tell you.
Danny Noonan's brother, Billy O'Keefe. So you come through these small holes. There was a really short hole at LA Country Club. It had promise. I don't think that hole lived up to the promise and excitement.
Well, they played it the one day, I guess Saturday, they played it about like 88 yards or something. So it was funny on the range. The caddies know where the tees are and what the yardage is going to be. So I have my launch monitor, and I was on the range hitting teed up 60s, teed up like a low driver, trying to get it to stop as fast as I could and trying to get the yardage right. So that's something that I don't think I know I've never done before, and I saw some other guys trying to do something special there to get it, just keep it on the surface on that hole was pretty tough.
There's a certain amount of artistry in the way they set up the course. I think it's not as easy as it looks.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you have, 156 very knowledgeable people that are going to critique it as they play it. All the players, we all think that we're the best course designers and course setup people of all time. Just from playing so much golf, we just think that we know better. And I don't really think that's the case, because they have a tough job. And you hear about when they do something wrong, but you don't really hear that much when they do everything right, which is much more common.
If you ever want to play wing foot in a practice round for the 2028 Open, you know who to talk to, Billy or me.
There we go. I don't know. I think as you play better, there's stuff that comes with it. Some more articles are written about you. There's some TV around you and stuff. But most of my pressure kind of comes from me personally. Like I'm just out there trying to hold myself to like a really high standard that I think I could achieve. So, I try not to let the other stuff bother me or affect me too much. But, as you play better, that's stuff that comes with good golf. And I'm certainly trying to play as good as I can. So I'm all for the extra attention and stuff that comes with it.
Thanks for joining us
Casper.
today.
Billy
We
Harmon.
really appreciate your
Double
feedback.
Indemnity.
And please
Arky.
subscribe to the
Two
show
outer.
and hit the
Claude
bell
Harmon.
icon so you get notified
Movie
of
classics.
new episodes.
Mark Gable.
Hit them
Odd
hard
Job.
and hit them off.
Best 36 holes.